I wasn't born with a silver spoon. Life has been rough for me. I need to steal my madam's husband to elevate myself. Something is going on here in this house, but I can't figure it out.
They say a woman's heart can hear what her ears refuse to accept. Amanda will later remember that day as the beginning of everything, the beginning of love, of flirting, of laughter, and a slow burning betrayal that will creep into her home like smoke under a locked door. It started on a bright Sunday morning at a university graduation in Lagos. The air was thick with celebration, camera flashes bursting like tiny fireworks, proud parents fanning themselves beneath the unforgiving sun, graduates laughing too loudly because joy demanded volume. Amanda had gone to support her cousin. She did not go looking for love. But love, they say, has a habit of ambushing the unprepared. She was adjusting her gele when she felt it. That strange pull, like an invisible thread tugging at her chest. She looked up, and there he was. Joe, tall, light-skinned, impeccably dressed in a tailored black trousers and lemon shirt that seemed stitched by the hands of destiny itself. His smile was calm, confident, the kind of smile that suggested that he had never chased anything in his life because everything naturally moved towards him. Their eyes met, not bruised, not glanced, met. It was the kind of meeting that makes the world shrink. The noise around them faded in a distant tone. For a brief second, it felt as though time itself paused to watch what would happen next. Amanda looked away first, her heart fluttering like a restless bird. When she dared to glance back, he was walking towards her, and that was how it began. For them, it was love at first sight, the kind poets exaggerate about, and skeptics roll their eyes out until it happens to them. Joe did not waste time. Before the graduation decorations were taken down, before the excitement of the ceremony had fully faded, he had found a way to sit beside Amanda. Conversation flowed between them like a river that had been waiting for release. They laughed too easily, they understood each other too quickly. It felt less like meeting and more like remembering. Within weeks, they were inseparable. Jo would send flowers to her office, not the roadside kind, but imported bouquets wrapped in silk ribbons. He took her to restaurants where the chandeliers glittered like captive stars. Amanda, in turn, gave him something wealth could not buy: warmth, sincerity, a love that felt like home. Their chemistry was electric when they walked into a room together. Heads turned. When they posted pictures, comments flooded in. Friends whispered, "This is what perfect looks like." Even strangers admired them. The handsome, wealthy young man and the elegant, radiant woman whose smile seemed brighter whenever he was near. Both families approved almost instantly. Joe came from a wealthy home, a family known in business circles. Amanda came from a respected background, raised with values that shone through her grace and intelligence. The introductions went smoothly. Laughter filled living rooms. Plates of jollof rice and grilled chicken disappeared as conversation stretched late into the evening. It was as though destiny had signed the agreement before they did. Their love story became the talk of the town. People spoke of how they met, how their eyes clicked, how fast everything moved. Some called it fate, others called it luck. A few called it too good to be true. But when love feels like fire, who pauses to check for smoke? 6 months after that graduation ceremony, Joe proposed, not quietly, not simply. He rented out a private rooftop lodge overlooking Victoria Island, Soft violin music floated in the air. A cycle of white roses surrounded them. When he went down on one knee, Amanda's hand trembled, not with doubt, but with overwhelming joy. She said yes before he finished the question. Marriage preparations began almost immediately. The wedding planners were the best money could hire. Designers flew in fabrics from Dubai. Invitations were embossed in gold. Guest list included CEOs, politicians, and society allies. Social media buzzed weeks before the date, and when the day finally arrived, Lagos glittered. Amanda looked breathtaking in a custom-made gown that clung to her like moonlight. Joe stood tall in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, pride and triumph written all over his face. The hall sparkled with crystal chandeliers. The cake stood like a monument to indulgence. Champagne flowed freely. Cameras flashed endlessly. It wasn't just a wedding, it was an event. An announcement to the world that two golden lives had emerged into one. As they danced their first dance, Amanda rested her head on Joe's chest and whispered, "Forever." Joe kissed her forehead and held her tighter. If words could speak, perhaps they would have warned her. But words are silent witnesses, and sometimes the most beautiful beginnings hide the darkest endings. Immediately after the wedding, life seemed to move at the speed of answered prayers. It was as if heaven itself approved their union and decided to waste no time in pouring blessings upon them. Barely 3 months into the marriage, Amanda discovered she was pregnant. The news arrived on a quiet morning. She stared at the test stripe with trembling fingers, her heart pounding like a ceremonial drum. When she told Joe, he lifted her off the ground and spun her around the living room, laughing like a boy who had just won the world. "My queen," he whispered, kissing her forehead, "you have given me everything." The pregnancy was smooth, wrapped in comfort and luxury. Doctor visits were handled by the best specialists. Cravings were satisfied before she even voiced them. If Amanda wanted strawberries at midnight, Joe made calls. If she felt tired, he cancelled meetings to sit beside her. Their home became softer, warmer, filled with the sweet expectations of new life. And then came the day. The hospital room buzzed with anticipation. Hours passed like years. Sweat beaded Amanda's forehead as she fought through the waves of labor. Joe held her hand tightly, whispering encouragements, promising her strength when hers felt like it was fading. Then the first cry pierced the air, sharp, strong. Before Amanda could fully process it, another cry followed. Twins, two beautiful baby boys, perfect, pink-lipped, loud with life. Joe stood frozen for a moment, eyes glossy, as the nurses placed the babies into Amanda's arms. He had always been confident, composed, but that day tears betrayed him. "My sons," he murmured. From that moment, love multiplied. The house echoed with baby cries, tiny giggles, and the soft shuffle of sleepless nights. Amanda glowed in motherhood. Joe adored his family openly. He bought miniature designer outfits for the boys. He installed cameras in every corner of the house. For security, he said. He would come home early just to watch them sleep. To outsiders, their life looked like a fairy tale, continuing flawlessly. But fairy tales rarely show what happens when exhaustion enters the room. Two infants are not gentle guests. Amanda tries to be everything at once: wife, mother, hostess, daughter-in-law. Sleepless nights began to carve faint shadows under her eyes. Her once perfectly styled hair was often tied back in haste. The elegant dresses gave way to nursing gowns and comfortable slippers. Joe noticed, not with criticism, with concern. "My love," he said one morning, sitting beside her as she rocked one of the twins. You need help. You can't do this alone. Amanda hesitated at first. She wanted to be strong, to prove she could manage it all. But motherhood is beautiful and brutal in equal measure. After much discussion, they agreed to hire a nanny, someone trustworthy, someone professional, someone who would ease Amanda's burden. And that was when Sandra entered their lives. Sandra arrived on Monday morning. She was introduced as experienced, soft spoken, and highly recommended. But the moment Amanda opened the door and saw her clearly, something flickered. A feeling she could not name. Sandra was young, very young, and very beautiful. Her skin was smooth and glowing. Her figure was undeniable curvy, shaped like temptation wrapped in modest clothing. Even in a modest clothing, her beauty could not hide. She carried herself with quiet confidence, her smile polite but knowing. Joe stood behind Amanda when they welcomed her, and for a fraction of a second, just a fraction, his gaze lingered. It was subtle, almost invisible, but sometimes danger does not knock loudly. Sometimes it enters with a soft smile and folded hands. Amanda shook off the unease in her chest. After all, she trusted her husband. She trusted her home. She trusted the foundation they had built. But foundations do not always crack with noise. Sometimes they split in silence, and Sandra had just stepped inside. Sandra settled into the house like a quiet breeze, polite, efficient, almost invisible when she needed to be. She woke before everyone else. She handled the twins with surprising tenderness. She spoke softly to Amanda, calling her Ma, with careful respect. To visitors, she was the perfect housemaid, humble, hardworking, grateful for the opportunity. Amanda slowly began to relax. The dark circles under her eyes faded. She started sleeping longer hours. Sometimes she even laughed freely again, trusting that her home was in capable hands. But beneath Sandra's gentle tone and lowered eyelashes, ambition stared like a snake in tall grass. She had not grown up with silver spoons or rooftop proposals. She had not danced beneath crystal chandeliers. Life had shown her its rough side early, and now, standing inside a mansion where marble floors shone like mirrors and luxury hung from the ceiling, she felt something awaken inside her. Desire, not just for money, for position, for power, for the life Amanda was living. At first, Joe barely noticed her beyond basic costing. She was staff, background, a passing shadow in his hallway. But shadows, when positioned correctly, can reshape the light. It began softly. Sandra would accidentally time her chores for moments Amanda was asleep upstairs or bathing. The twins would be resting, the house would be quiet, and she would move around in fitted tops and shorts that were far too casual for work. Not inappropriate enough to accuse, just enough to distract. One afternoon, Joe walked into the kitchen to grab a bottle of water. Sandra was standing on a small stool, pretending to reach for something on the upper shelf. The movement was slow, deliberate. When she stepped down, she acted surprised to see him. "Oh, sir, I didn't know you were there." Joe cleared his throat. He told himself it was nothing, just a young woman unaware, just coincidence. He avoided eye contact, kept conversations short, reminded himself of Amanda's upstairs, of the twins, of the vows spoken before hundreds of witnesses. But temptation does not attack like a lion. It lingers like perfume, soft, persistent, impossible to ignore once inhaled. Days turned into weeks. Sandra's presence became louder in silence. A brush of fingers when handing him his phone, a lingering glance, a question asked too sweetly, laughter that seemed designed for one listener only. Joe tried to resist. He began spending longer hours at his work. He stopped lingering in common areas. He told himself he was stronger. But strength weakens when fed attention. and Sandra was patient. Then one evening, during a heavy rainstorm that trapped them inside, the electricity went out. Amanda had taken medication for a headache and was asleep upstairs. The twins were finally quiet. The house was dark except for the faint glow of backup lights. Joe walked downstairs to check the generator. Sandra was already there. In the dim light, she looked different, softer, bolder. The silence between them thickened like humidity before a storm. He should have walked away, he knew that. But sometimes a single moment can undo months of discipline. And that night, the line blurred. At that moment, it became easier. Stolen glances turned into hidden meetings. Whispers replaced silence. They moved carefully, always when Amanda was asleep, bathing or visiting her mother. Doors were locked. Cameras were temporarily disabled for maintenance. Lies were told smoothly, like rehearsed lines in a play. Joe convinced himself it meant nothing. Sandra knew it meant everything, and in the middle of it all, Amanda moved through her home unaware. A queen sleeping peacefully while termites walked quietly beneath her throne. Yes, suspicion has a scent. It started small. Joe's phone began facing downward. More often, he showered immediately after coming home, even on weekends. Once, Amanda walked downstairs unexpectedly and found Sandra and Joe standing too far apart, the kind of distance people create when they were just too close. Is everything okay? Amanda asked. Of course, Joe answered too quickly. Sandra lowered her eyes. Another time, Amanda heard a whisper and soft laughter from the laundry room. By the time she reached the door, silence greeted her. Sandra emerged holding folded clothes, her expression calm. Ma, I was just arranging Sal's shirts. Amanda nodded, but her chest tightened, like thunder rumbling miles away, close enough to hear, too far to confirm. On several occasions, she felt she was inches away from discovering the truth, a lipstick stain that wasn't hers. And when she asked, Joe claimed it came from an event, a perfume scent she didn't recognize, a message notification that disappeared before she could read it. Each clue slipped through her fingers like sand. And Sandra, she grew bolder. Because when betrayal survives its first near exposure, it often returns stronger. The house that once echoed with lullabies and laughter now carries something else, something invisible but heavy. And secrets, like an unpaid debt, always demand settlement. But Amanda did not know yet. She was close, so very close, and the walls were still watching. One fateful Saturday morning, the kind that begins quietly and ends with history rewritten, the sky over Lagos looked harmless, blue, still, deceptively calm, but storms do not always announce themselves with thunder. Sometimes they wait, patient and precise. Amanda had not slept much the night before. For weeks, suspicions had been scratching at her mind like a rat behind a wall. Every forced smile, every delayed answer, every network problem when she tried to access the home security. The pieces refused to form a full picture. So she did something she never imagined she would do in her own marriage. She installed hidden cameras, not the obvious ones Joe knew about, smaller ones, silent witnesses tucked behind picture frames, nestled between decorative books, disguised inside air fresheners. She told no one, not even her closest friends. Trust once cracked, learn to investigate quietly. That Saturday, Joe drove Amanda and the twins to the hospital for a routine checkup. He was gentle, attentive, the perfect husband in public. He carried one twin while Amanda held the other. He kissed her forehead before she stepped out of the car. I will head to the office from here, he said smoothly. There's something urgent I need to sign. Amanda nodded. Don't stress yourself, she replied softly, her eyes searching his face for something, anything, but he smiled too easily. After dropping them off, Joe did exactly what he said he would not. He did not go to the office. He turned the car around and headed home. The house stood quiet when he arrived. Too quiet. Sandra was inside, as planned, supposedly cleaning, cooking, doing what housemaids are paid to do. But the moment Joe stepped through the door, the air shifted. Sandra emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hand on a small towel. She wore something casual, too casual. Her smile was not the respectful one she wore around Amanda. It was different, familiar. What if she comes back home early? Joe asked, though his voice carried more chill than fear. She won't, Sandra replied confidently. Hospital visits take time. Famous last words. Upstairs in the hospital waiting area, Amanda sat, holding one of the twins, when she remembered something. The pediatric file she had left at home. The nurse told her the doctor would need it. Her heart skipped. The house was not far. I'll just rush back quietly, she told the receptionist. She didn't call Joe. She didn't inform anyone. Something in her spirit felt restless. Back at the house, the hidden cameras were recording everything, every movement, every careless laugh. On the large living room sofa, the very sofa where Amanda once nursed her babies and leaned against Joe's shoulder during movie nights, lines were being crossed. Without hesitations, the betrayal was no longer whispers, it was bold, reckless, comfortable. Outside, Amanda's car pulled quietly into the compound. She noticed Joe's car immediately. Her stomach dropped. He said he was going to the office. Her hands began to shake, but her mind became strongly calm. The calm before an earthquake splits the earth open. She stepped out of the car slowly. The front door was not fully locked. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears as she pushed it open. Voices, low laughter, the unmistakable sound of movement from the living room. Each step she took felt heavier than the last. Then she turned the corner and saw them on the sofa. Not rumors, not suspicion, not imagination. Reality. Joe and Sandra, red handed. Time did not slow down, it shattered. The twins' laughter once filled that space. Now betrayal sat comfortably where love used to live. Amanda stood frozen at the entrance of the living room, and in that single breathless moment, all hell broke loose. Joe's soul left his body before his feet can. That was how terrified he looked. His face drained of color, his confidence, the same confidence that once charmed the crowded graduation hall, evaporated like mist under harsh sunlight. For a man who always had the right words, language suddenly abandoned him. Amanda, he stammered, but her name sounded foreign in his mouth. Sandra did not wait for explanations. The moment her eyes locked with Amanda's, shame flooded her face. Not the shame of regret, but the shame of being caught. She scrambled off the sofa, grabbed her scattered clothes with trembling hands. Madam, I. There are moments when silence screams louder than insults. Amanda did not shout. She did not throw anything. She did not collapse. She simply stood there, still as a statue carved from heartbreak. Sandra fled, barefoot, disheveled, humiliated. The front door slammed behind her, and then it was just husband and wife, and the ruins of what used to be sacred. Joe dropped to his knees. Literally, he crawled towards Amanda, as if the distance between them had become a desert he could not cross while standing upright. It was a mistake, he pleaded. It meant nothing. I don't even know how it happened. But betrayal does not just happen, it is built, brick by brick, lie by lie. Amanda finally found her voice, but it was not the voice Joe expected. Calm, cold. How many times? She asked. The question sliced deeper than a scream. Joe hesitated. That hesitation was answer enough. She closed her eyes. In that second, every memory replayed. The graduation ceremony, the rooftop proposal, the wedding dance, the hospital room when their sons were born. all of it now stained with a truth she could never unsee. Joe called his mother first, then his father, then Amanda's parents. Within hours, the living room that had witnessed adultery was now filled with elders and relatives. Voices overlapped. Some scolded, some begged. Some blamed Sandra entirely, calling her a serpent, a destroyer of homes. Joe wept openly. I will change, he promised. I will fire her. I will cut off everything. I will do anything. Anything. The world sounded cheap now. Amanda's mother held her hand tightly. Marriage is not something you throw away in anger, she whispered carefully. Think of your children, the twins, the innocent souls sleeping upstairs. Amanda felt something tear inside her. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet ripping of something once whole. Days passed in heavy silence. Joe tried everything. Flowers, apologies, long messages, counselings, spiritual interventions. He became softer, humbler, attentive in ways that almost looked genuine. Finally, after weeks of pressure from family and consideration for her children, Amanda agreed to stay. Not because of pain disappeared, not because trust returned, but because sometimes women stay for reasons the world cannot fully see. The house resumed its routine. Sandra was gone, dismissed, erased, her name no longer spoken aloud. Joe became a model husband on the surface. He came home early. He avoided unnecessary trips. He prayed more. He held Amanda's hands in public like a man afraid to lose them again. But love, once cracked, never reflects the same.
Look at you, my
Amanda
little one.
fulfilled her
Are you
duties.
playing
She
nicely?
cooked,
Such a
she
happy
cared
baby.
for the twins, she attended events by Joe's side. She smiled when cameras flashed. But deep down in quiet chambers of her heart, something had died on that sofa. She no longer looked at Joe and saw destiny. She saw betrayal. She no longer felt warmth in his touch. She felt memory. Forgiveness, perhaps, but love? Love had slipped away quietly the day she walked into her living room and saw her marriage unravel before her eyes. And though the world believed the storm had passed, some stars leave damage that no one can see.